Yo, what's going on with y'all? It's your boy Money Making Marlo. I got a special guest with me here today. Who do I have with me today?
Hi, my name is DR.Sicat. I am a sports chiropractor. I have a practice in the West End, and it's great being here today.
Okay.
Yeah.
First thing I want to ask you before I get into the questions I ask everybody is, how are you feeling?
Great, I love it. I'm
Okay.
excited to be here. Love meeting new people,
Yes, sir.
especially in this type of situation. I love, helping young guys like yourselves get to kind of become a mentor and to kind
Exactly.
of help you guys out whenever you need to. So it's
Okay,
good. Yeah.
okay. How's your week been? How's your week been?
Good. It's been good. I've got my practice in the West End. COVID's always like around, so you kind of have to go with the flow. Don't let the different types of laws and bylaws kind of get to you. Don't get like the negativity affect you. You
Mm,
just try to stay positive, keep a positive mindset, and remember that you're blessed in this country. That's it.
exactly.
So.
Has COVID kind of affected the way you've been working? Have you had to make specific type of schedules for certain type of patients or anything like that?
Yeah, actually, I have like my practice pre-COVID was primarily like walk-in, and people would call. We'd have a packed house. Patients would be sitting there. I have massage therapists, physiotherapists, and myself as the chiropractor in the office. And everybody really didn't mind being close together or people passing in the hallways. Nowadays, we don't do any walk-ins anymore, which was a big part of my practice as well. We have to limit the amount of people in the office too as well. We really maintain safe distances in between. So in terms of the patient flow, we're cleaning in between patients in the rooms to make sure everything is clean and safe. So the productivity in general within my business has slowed down. But again, I'm thankful to have a practice that's running.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think once this COVID thing is said and done, we'll ever get back to normal?
I don't think that we'll ever get back to the point where we're all like normal per se. I think that there's always going to be safeguards. There will be different strains of variants, but over time, as our bodies get used to interacting with this type of virus and other variants, we're going to have less of a effect on our body because currently right now the mortality rate is really the concern. But moving forward, as our bodies get used to and develop immunity and antibodies for against the virus, there's going to be less of a mortality rate, and we'll be okay. But that's probably going to be years from now.
Because the way I'm looking at this is, let's say COVID starts to slow down, the numbers are going down, and everything's getting back to whatever we call normal. We'll forever, for the rest of our lives, be seeing people with face mask on, or you'll have one of those. Because a lot of people always like to have own personal space,
Yeah.
but now it's like if you're in someone's bubble, that could really cause commotions. So me, what I'm saying is, once this is all said and done, I feel like there will still be people living as if nothing's changed,
Right.
if that
That's
makes
that's
sense.
true. Well, there's different types of people that are out there. Obviously, the people who live their life and don't really worry about it and let things go as they go. And then there's the other extreme where people haven't left their houses still because they're still concerned about it. Each person, the way I look at it is to each their own. But what I really find the detrimental effects are is with our younger kids. If you look at those kindergarten kids and the grade oneers right now, they've never had a situation where they could actually come to class and hug their best friend. They've come to the school mid COVID and are told not to be within 6 feet of each other, not to touch each other, not to do that. Like my daughter is 9 years old, and so luckily, pre COVID, I remember her hugging her best friends every time they would leave after school, sitting in group circles, sitting in the auditorium or in the gym, watching watching the Christmas shows and whatnot, and you see all these things that are that we took for granted within the upbringing of our children, and it's gone to the point where it's normal for them to not touch each other, or it's normal for them to not hug each other and say goodbye. So that's really where my concern is in the long-term effects of what COVID is doing socially.
Wow. So you think the younger kids are the ones that are be most affected when it comes to this?
Yes. One thing about the young generation, like I said, the kindergartners and the 1-year-olds, is they're very resilient. Children are very resilient. You put them in a bad situation, they'll find a way to be happy. But again, the key here is them having that upbringing of not being able to feel that it's okay to hug their friend or whatnot. That's really the psychological impact in the long run. So there's going to be 1 or 2 generations, at that age that really, I'm going to always question, like, how are they going to be when they're in their teens? How are they going to be when they're adults? Because that's what their upbringing is, during the time when their formative years are happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
So with what you do, back to what you do, when did the love for it come in? Because I assume you can't be doing what you're doing right now if you don't love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I lived in Winnipeg, and I got my organic chemistry degree back then, and I actually got into pharmacy. I was at a crossroads, and I was looking into going into some sort of healthcare field, but I decided to go into natural medicine, so to speak. So instead of looking at it from the pharmaceutical angle, I'm looking at it from, instead of fixing it with medication and drugs, let's try to fix problems and issues with rehabilitation, with exercise, with chiropractic. So I got into chiropractic because of the need to go into some form of natural health care.
Wow. What school did you attend for? Was it here in our city? Was it out the city?
So yeah, I lived in Winnipeg, and so what I ended up doing was I got into chiropractic school down in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So it's a great city. The school is called Northwestern Health Sciences University. Amazing school. It's, at the time it was one of the top 5 schools in North America for chiropractic. And at that point, you kind of decide, the direction you want to go in. And for me, chiropractic is you can fix people, help people, get people better without the use of drugs and medication. So that's the reason why I did that. Yeah.
Whenever someone get into an injury and then they find out they have to come to you, do you ever have people that are skeptical about you cracking bones or anything like that?
Yeah. So I would say earlier on, when I first started my practice, that's been over 10 years now. And when I first started, people would always be very skeptical. I look a lot younger than I present. I'm actually a lot older than what I look. So people are always questioning my intelligence or my experience in the field. So once they realize, that I do know what I'm talking about, then they get really comfortable. But I do remember when I first started my practice, I would see patients and they would be getting really good results, getting better. Then they would go to the family doctor to do an update, and then they'd stop seeing me. And I'd always wonder why. So I'd call the patient up and I'd be like, hey, you know what, how are you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm getting better, everything's going great. And I'm like, well, how come you haven't come back? And so they basically said, well, I went to my family doctor to follow up with them, and then I told them that I was seeing you, and then they basically told me, oh, you got to stop seeing the chiropractor, it's bad for you, and you got to go do this instead. And I'm like, how do you feel about that? And they're like, I really don't believe them because I am getting better. However, I have to listen to my family doctor. So starting a practice back at that time, it was very frustrating. So I initially started to try to approach those doctors individually, to talk to them and introduce myself in the neighborhood, saying, hey, I'm Dr.Sicat. I work with rehab, I work with patients. And a lot of them were, hi, thank you, see you later. So I would never really change their opinion. So I went back into my office one day and I said, well, how am I going to do this? So I changed my strategy when I worked with patients. So what I basically did is, when I started getting them better, I ended up sending them back to their family doctor directly, and specifically telling them, hey, look, tell your family doctor that Dr.Sicat has gotten you better. So instead of sending them as a a progress report, I send them at the end of their treatment plan where they're 100% better. So when they go back to the family doctor, they basically turn around and would say, hey, you know what, you didn't fix me, Dr.Sicat did, and he did a great job, and I'd go back again. And by that point, you can't change the doctor's opinion about my profession, but you can change the doctor's opinion about who I am as the doctor who's treated this person. So over the years, rather than trying to convince them that chiropractic works, they've heard my name over and over enough to know that I work, so I get them better. So it's all about establishing yourself as a reputation. You can't change a person's opinion about what they believe in inherently about your practice, your profession, even your job or whatever, but you can show them that you are good at what you do. And over time, when people hear your name being a positive influence in their life, they're going to accept you as that particular profession that helps people. So nowadays, the doctors in my area, when they hear my name, they never bat an eye. They're like, oh, good, keep going.
Yeah.
So it takes time, but once you understand that it's not that doctor's fault or the perception of the people who are scared of chiropractic, it's really who you are as a person and what you do for them that is really what is the qualifying factor as to your success or failure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because when I first got into my accident, I was going to my insurance. They just wanted to give me one, whatever was closest to me. And at the time when I lived west, it was the one in Belmead. I don't remember what the name of it was, but it was the one in Belmead. And then when I got a lawyer, this is take two. Go ahead. So like I was saying, when I got into my accident, my insurance just told me to go to Belmead, the Belmead chiropractor. But once I got the lawyer involved in the situation, he was asking me, who am I going to? Am I going to a chiropractor? I told him I was going to the one in Belmead. Belmead, I have a guy for you. And that's when your name came up. I was with my mom at the time, and my mom kind of remembered the name, but it's just, her English isn't fully there.
Of course, yeah.
So when she heard the name, she's like, oh, something about that name sounded kind of familiar. And it's when I drove to your place, oh, you're gonna love this place. Like, no way. But like with stuff like that, it's just, I find it kind of hard to do because you gotta locate the area and know what you're doing, because obviously I'm coming from an ignorant point of view. I don't know much about what you do, but I feel as though if you were to crack the wrong area, that person could be in a lot of...
Yeah, there's obviously different factors involved when you're assessing somebody and treating them. You definitely can hurt somebody if you don't know what you're doing. But at the same time, the fact of the matter is in regards to like liability in my practice, it is very low to actually hurt somebody or do something catastrophic that most people hear happens on the news. So for instance, I'll give you an example, like your malpractice cost. My malpractice cost is a direct reflection of the risk involved in what I do. You understand that, right? So if I hurt somebody, my malpractice covers me.
Wow.
So for instance, I'll give you an example of how safe chiropractic is. With my car insurance, I'm paying like 100, 150 for my car monthly. That basically tells me that the insurance company charges me $150 to drive a car, to protect me, to protect my car, because that is the risk involved in driving that car, because there's a certain liability. So it costs me $150 to allow me to drive to be covered for insurance. My malpractice cost to treat patients in my office on a monthly basis is like $91 a month. So that tells you, and it tells me, that there is more risk for me to get into a car accident or hurt somebody or do something dumb in my car versus the liability that I have to hurt somebody in my practice. So in the years that I've been practicing, there has never been any issues or injuries and so forth that have happened in my practice, nor do I know anybody that has. Again, anytime that something pops up, it's always on the news, but at the end of the day, it's few and far between.
Wow. Okay. So with a job like this, I always assume you have more good patients than bad. But with the bad ones, can you give a quick story on the, obviously you don't have to drop names, but can you give a story on the worst patient you've had? Like, was he just not cooperating? Every time he wanted to crack a bone, he would be fidgeting
right?
a lot.
It's not necessarily about like the fidgety part of it. It's about patients who, you know, it's not even really worse patients. Everybody, there's always good people and bad people. I think I remember one story in regards to patients. It's really about compliance. Patients questioning you as a doctor as to whether you are doing things right, and
Mm.
then them being belligerent in regards to uh, what you're doing with them. Also, patients a lot of times, the hardest part is I've had great experiences with my patients. I have very few that aren't nice to me, or and vice versa. But I always find that when my front desk always tells me this, is that when the patients walk into the office, they treat the front desk completely different versus how they treat me. So the front desk, they treat them like don't exist, and they're rude to them. And the second I pop in, they light up and they become like a completely different person. And I bring them back and treat them, and they're great people in the back. And then when they come up, they revert back to okay, the doctor's gone, I'm going to be really bitchy or whatever to the staff, which, it is what it is. And there's some patients that are like that. But in terms of actual bad patients, again, I guess it's really about compliance. I've never had a person really be disrespectful in the office. Maybe during COVID, I remember one woman who refused to wear a mask or was compliant, and I had to ask them, hey, you have to wear a mask and all this, because, and this was during the peak part of
Oh,
COVID.
okay.
It wasn't now. It was in the very, very beginning, because that was what was mandated.
Mhm.
And I was just being nice about it. And they weren't very happy, and they said, you know what, I'm just gonna leave. And I was like, I'm sorry, but this is
It's
the
the
government,
rules,
the
exactly.
government rules. I mean, it's not my rules; it's the government rules, right? And so at the end of the day, they decided to leave, and I was like, I'm sorry, but I have to follow the rules set by my association and the bylaws. Otherwise, we're gonna shut down. They're gonna
Exactly.
shut
Because
down.
the thing is with that, what people fail to understand is if they don't follow the rules, they don't get in trouble. You and your business place is the one that suffer for it.
Absolutely,
Not because
yeah.
of that one person. Hundreds of people can't come in, get whatever they need to get because the one person decided to be above everybody else,
Absolutely,
which sucks.
And that's the thing. I mean, and I understand everybody's frustration, and I just wish them well, and that was it. But for the most part, I mean, again, going back to COVID, it really puts people on edge. Some people, it makes them very defiant, because they feel that their freedoms are being taken away from them.
Yeah.
But you and me being immigrants and stuff, and whatnot, and your parents being immigrants rather, it's we're blessed to be in this country. That's how I look at it. So for the most part, I take everything that people say or do with a grain of salt, because I have my own problems to deal with, right, on a
Exactly.
day basis, or a day-to-day basis. And my upbringing of my 9-year-old daughter, all those things that come into play.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, God forbid, but let's say something happens to you and you need what you do to other people. Who do you go to?
Well, we have a group of people that we meet up
Mhm.
regularly. We sit down, and we'll catch up on our week or our month, and we'll adjust each other. And again, I've got a number of friends that are chiropractors. It's very important for me to practice what I preach. So I'll call them up, get my adjustments. They call me up, they come in, get their adjustments. It's very mutual respect. We all know that our jobs are very demanding. We're physically working on people. Obviously, like, I'm not a big guy per se, but there's patients in my clinic that are like 6'5", 250-pound
Sheesh.
football players. So
Yeah.
I'll work on them. So I'm like, my job is very physical. So at times I'm going to need those adjustments, and I just pick up the phone and call like one of my chiropractic colleagues, and we just adjust each other.
Wow.
Simple. Yeah.
So whenever so the thing that you do, you're obviously always on people that are into sports. Is this something mandatory if you're into sports? Can you get away with just stretching before you do whatever you about to do?
I feel that the chiropractic has come a long way. Every sports team now has a chiropractor on their team, because the sports, the athletes, they feel that they need more than just the massage or the stretch or the strengthening. Nowadays, alignment and proper biomechanics is so important in the function of an athlete that every little thing counts for them. I always explain to athletes that because you're at a high level, elite position than most people are, one simple adjustment is going to allow you to feel like you've had an extra day's rest and recovery. Wow. So that in itself is an advantage for a lot of these athletes.
Wow. What type of benefits have you been receiving with this? Like, have you been getting more connections, or let's say you work on someone, they say, oh, I love the work that you did. My back was feeling one way. I feel good now. I'd like for you to come and eat with my family. What type of things have you ran into with this?
Yeah, no, you know, being in my profession, obviously, I get a lot of referrals from happy patients. My reputation within the neighborhood and, you know, Western Edmonton, I get a lot of referrals from medical doctors, lawyers, all sorts of different aspects of business. So I get a lot of referrals that way. One of I lost my train of thought. What was the question again?
No, what I was asking is some of the benefits when you're doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, what do you mean by benefits?
Just anything. Let's say.
Oh, like okay, yes, I yeah. You know, being in my practice, you know, over 10 years, I've met a lot of families who've had children and have brought their kids in, and I've seen them grow up. And so I've extended all of my, you know, hospitality to everybody in my office. So whenever a patient comes into my clinic, it feels like it's home. I'm very jovial with them. I'll sit there and I'll shoot the shit with them, and they'll you know, we'll go back and forth like we're friends, you know, yeah. Like we're drinking buddies, or we go to church together. You know, I create a good professional but kind and hospitable relationship with every patient that has come in. I have had met a lot of people outside of the clinic, and them recognizing me and talking to me, so it makes you feel good. So yeah. One aspect of my practice as well that I remember telling myself when I first started was, I want to get to that point where if I go out to eat in my neighborhood in one of the regular restaurants, a general rule for me is I have to face away from everybody towards the wall, because if I'm facing towards the crowd, there would inevitably be somebody coming up to me saying, "Hey, Dr.Sicat, hi, nice to see you," which is great, but it interrupts your meal. You don't necessarily want to do anything. But the good thing about that is it allows me to know that I'm very well respected in the community. So, for instance, if I walk through Safeway, I would rather someone come up to me and be, "Hey, how are you doing, Dr.Sicat?" as opposed to seeing me and then turning around and walking away, because that's just showing me that I'm not. That may have been a patient of mine. Maybe they didn't, you know, feel they had good treatment or whatever, and then they just walked and did, you know, a 180 and didn't want to talk to me. So the barometer of my success for me within the neighborhood is the fact that I have to face, you know, a wall, because people will always talk to me. So it's a measure of my success. So I'm happy that way, you know.
Okay. Any plans for when the time comes? Do you have any plans for retirement, or do you plan on just traveling the world, driving luxurious cars?
You know, I love what I do. I love the people that come in. I love being able to help people. I hear stories every day about, you know, the positivity that I've had in affecting their lives, getting them out of pain, or getting them more mobile, or giving them a life where they can get up, travel, you know, bring their children to the mountains, or do more active things with their family because they're out of pain. I'm gonna probably be doing this till I can't do it anymore. However, at the same time as well, I do want to reduce my hours and my days, and travel more, take more vacations, just enjoy life. You know, you work hard, so there's got to be a point where you have to allow yourself to live life. And you know, I've gone through school for like 10 or 12 years or whatever, practice my practice, and now is the time to really enjoy.
Wow. Yeah. When you're doing what you're doing, how do you find the bone to crack? Like, is there something is there like a bubble inside that you feel?
No, you know, people always ask me that. The best way to explain it is like for instance, like I've been doing this for so long. I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm feeling, and I know what's good and bad, and what needs to move, and what doesn't need to move, and what needs to move to help this person. It's kind of like the analogy that I always use is like, if there's a football field, I see every problem that I need to address, like as though there's watermelons sitting on the football field. So I can visually see, hey, I got to get that, and that, fix this. In my head, my mind races to understand what I need to do to get things moving, get things better, get things in alignment. So it's like finding watermelons on a football field. That's, I guess, how obvious it is to me.
Yeah.
Right? So if I look at your back, that's basically it. I can basically be like, okay, this needs to move, this needs to move.
So you could just look at it.
No, I'd have to feel it, of course. I'd have to move it around. But point being is when I say assess it, it's like assessing it with my hands, assessing it with my vision, assess it with range of motion, assess it with how that person is responding to my push, my prod, my adjustment, to know that, you know what, I'm doing the right thing to get this person better. And again, I'm pretty confident in my abilities to really try to fix everything that I can, you know?
My one curious thing, because sometimes, I don't know why, I know there's a lot of people like this where hearing bone crack is just satisfying. Mm-hmm. There's this one where they put the stretchy rope on your neck, and then they pull the neck up. Yeah. What is that stretchy?
Yeah, you know, and I've seen that video a lot where they put the neck thing and they yank on it, and you hear all the way through. So, you know, I don't want to necessarily say anything good or bad about those types of things. All I have to say is I personally don't do that to my patients. Personally, you know, some chiropractors feel like they will. Mm-hmm. For me, there is no benefit to that when you're working with patients, in my professional opinion, for my practice. You know, I can talk on and on about my cons about it, but I just won't do that right now. Because you know, it's a professional respect to those people who do that, right? So,
yeah. When it comes to this, do you think this could help people with mental health?
Absolutely.
How's that?
Chronic pain is one huge issue when it comes to mental health. Imagine not being able to get up and just walk to the bathroom without having a cane. Imagine not being able to go play basketball. Imagine being, you know, 25 and unable to play football because you blew out your hip or your back and you can't even pick up a piece of paper. You can't even put on your socks. Over time, that's going to impact you because all your friends who are, you know, stars of the football team or stars of the basketball team, you're not with them. You're at home because you're in pain. So psychologically, you're going to have physical impacts and you're going to have psychological stress, anxiety, and sometimes it can be irreversible. So if you don't have the ability to understand that, hey, you can get this problem with chronic pain fixed, you got a dead end. There's chronic pain. Now there's mental stress, mental anguish. So you're never going to get outside of that. So it absolutely affects the mental health of any individual. Wow. And I see it in my practice a lot. Like I see not just young people, I see the like older people where you've got people who are in my office crying because they can't pick up their daughter or they can't even put on their shoes or you know, all sorts of different stories. I hear that a lot. So at the end of the day, you know, mental stress is a big factor of chronic pain.
So you feel as though what you do is a good start to help you feel better.
Absolutely. Yeah. On. You know, aside from that, when a person walks into my office and they're in pain and they're like, you know, I hurt my back, I can't even bend over or touch my feet or bend over to brush my teeth, I work with them. I do some movements, adjustments, rehabilitation, stretching, and then when they leave after just one visit and they're like, dude, I feel great, like, you know, thank you so much. Like, I mean, it will, you know, it's the gratitude that they give to me that keeps me going because I know that it works. I know that if I can't help people and I'm a really bad like doctor, I'm gonna have complaints as opposed to hugs, and that's not a very fun way to practice your business. You know, I'd rather have people hug me and say thank you than people say, you know, you're a shitty doctor or you're whatnot, right? So at the end of the day, looking at it from that perspective, I'm happy, right?
Wow. So this is my last question
Sure.
to you. Do you think us as men, should speak more on mental health? Because I was doing a lot of research on this. When it comes to suicide numbers, it's mostly in men, and some people are saying men go through a lot, but they keep to themselves because as a man, you should be able to do this. You should be the toughest one. You should, like, crying shouldn't be a thing for you. Do you think us as men should be able to talk to one another, get our feelings out there? Just what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Mental health nowadays is at the forefront of a lot of issues that have happened, especially with again going back to COVID. But yeah, to touch on the fact that should men be allowed to be vulnerable? Yeah, absolutely, because there is no outlet for men because we've been taught at such a young age to grow up, keep quiet, suck it up, take it in, and just let it go. But sooner or later, every person has, you know, needs an outlet. You know, men and women. I feel that there should be more programs out there to allow men to understand and realize that you're allowed to be able to talk to other men. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to feel sadness or stress, and there needs to be more outlets because it's still somewhat stigmatized for a man to feel like, hey, you know what? Am I allowed to go to the psychologist? Am I allowed to have a group of men sit and talk about our problems and cry with them? I'm a complete advocate of that. And if men allow themselves to become more vulnerable with other men, there will be much more. There would be a lot less, you know, aggression out there towards each other and to relationships and partners and to the opposite sex. So I think that's I'm totally in agreement with having more programs and teaching men how to be more vulnerable.
That's all I got to ask you.
Awesome.
What I like to end things off is there anything you want to ask me?
You know, I just wanted to say that I commend what you're doing. You're a very motivated person. I enjoyed our time together today.
Yes, sir.
This is a great opportunity for me to see one of the good young ones get up, grow, and you might be, or you probably will be, you'll be on the internet and eventually on TV. And I was telling you earlier before, you'll be the next cabbie on the street, back in the day. All right, brother.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
I
want to thank you for coming in. Hopefully again in the future, who knows, 8 months, a year, 3 years from now, I'd love to have you on. And next time you're here, maybe I'll have my own studio. Maybe it might be here. It's just more decked out. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for coming in. Feel free to come in whenever again.
All right.
And
awesome. I appreciate it. Hey, don't forget about us little people when you're up there. Okay, brother? All right.
Okay. Have a good one.